Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education and the assistant chair of the music education department at Berklee College of Music. And I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Today, you'll meet our next guest host, Tony Memmel. Tony Memmel is a singer, songwriter, speaker, and teacher with unique charisma and creativity. Though he was born with one hand, he taught himself to play the guitar professionally by building a special cast that he designed out of guerrilla tape. He has toured 47 of the 50 states, 25 countries, and has worked with 16 countries, virtually sharing his music and his message of hard work, determination, and resilience. His work ranges from visiting schools, hospitals, and churches to writing and arranging music for children, composing symphonies, performing in historic concert venues, and helping people with hand and limb differences, like his, to develop their own adaptive methods that allow them to make music part of their lives. Tony grew up in... Oh, I can't say that, Tony. Where did you grow up?
Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Thank you, Waukesha, Wisconsin, and now resides in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife and 2 sons. He enjoys playing basketball, swimming, hiking, and cooking, and trying new foods, especially if hot sauce is involved.
All right, what is up, Able Voices community? My name is Tony Memmel, guest hosting one more time, and it's been such a joy to be your guest here for these last many episodes. And I'm so glad today to be joined by my friend Nicole Marti in Chicago today. She's been a friend of mine. I think when I first met Nicole all the way back in 2014, I was trying to do the math on this morning. And she's just an amazing advocate within the hand and limb difference and disability community. And I think she's going to be able to be an amazing advocate for this group, for people who are curious about all things related to different organizations that you can be involved in the limb different community. Growing up with one hand, all these different things that are going to be, I think, just amazing for this community to know about today. And without further ado, I would love to introduce my friend, Nicole. Hey, Nicole, what's up?
12 years, Tony. That's 12. That is unbelievable. How did that happen? It's so nice to be here with you. Love the excuse to spend my morning with you. So thank you for having me on. And I'm just so excited to chat with you this morning and share in conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, it's so good to be here with you. I mean, yeah, we both served at a conference back in I think it was 2014, for an organization based out of the Northeast, actually right out of the Boston area,
Yep.
called Helping Hands Foundation. And you were a guest speaker that weekend. And I can just remember like just getting to know you a little bit in like the back of our like carpool van that we were in, and then seeing the first thing that really stood out to me when you got to the conference was not just how friendly and open with everybody you were, but just I noticed that like from the get-go, you just like jumped right into just like playing with the kids. And just like you were, I just remember this really vividly because I was thinking about this. Like you were like pretending to be like, like wildcats with this little girl and stuff like that. And I was like, not to like embarrass you right off the bat, but I thought like I just thought that is a really cool engagement, a really cool opportunity for that young girl to meet you, and just thought you were just so natural and fun with her. And I just wondered like this might be an interesting place to jump in. Like where does some of that come from, where you just like show up somewhere and just dive right in like that?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember that at all, Tony. Playing cat with a random girl, but I mean, also doesn't surprise me because I will say that I love kids just inherently within my personality, and I feel like who I am. I love that kids are so open, and I love that kids show up and just want to play. And as adults, I continually feel like I struggle with finding the correct adult spaces to play. And I always feel like I'm looking for them, and being able to find safe spaces where the kids are, that always for me is a safe space where I know that I can play. And I think, that year showing up into that space, it was such a weird and unique experience that I had gone through. The reason that I was there, I was a pageant queen. I had won a pageant and was had gone to Miss America, and so was sort of showing up with a literal platform. Like when you talk about that world, so much of the work that goes into that, and I won't go down the pageant rabbit hole, but like so much of your work there is surrounded by you building a literal platform. And I felt like that platform literally was my job, and it was something that I took so very seriously. So I had the honor and the opportunity that year to hop into all of these camps, all of these sort of sacred spaces that were limb lost, limb different spaces for our people to gather and be. And although I still felt like I was learning us and I was trying to connect, and like I didn't have a lot of the language yet that I feel like I have today, where I like understand my experience a little better, and I feel like I've met some mentors and I've read some books, like I don't feel like I necessarily was fully in a space to like be put on up on stage and have the platform that I had. But because I had it, I felt like I was doing my darndest to show up in those spaces and at least try to be making connections with people. And I just love kids. So
Yeah.
I love that that's your like one of your first memories of me.
It is. I thought it was really cool. And I just, like, I'm not being critical of anyone or anything, but I just like I love to see that when somebody comes up that's there to do advocacy work, to show up to speak into young kids' lives, that was the first thing that I saw you do. Like it was like, or
Mm,
like not that you like just jumped right on the floor and were pretending to be a cat the minute that you got there, but like like after after meeting some people, like that you were just like that was really just sweet and cool, and I loved seeing that it was like you just had a very clear to me like vision of why you were there and who you were there to
mm,
serve. And that just like really
mm.
shone through that moment to me. And it felt very like, selfless, like very like interested in the people that you're there to serve. And I really enjoyed seeing that and still remember it to this day. It's funny how those little things that we come across, like that's something you don't even maybe remember is something that makes a big impact in someone else's life, isn't it?
It really is. And I think I want to tell you what one of my first memories of you is, but also like I will pause to reflect to say that like from that very first this conference, this meeting where you and I met, I now 12 years later am so thankful that like I still have connection with a lot of those young kids who have now grown into young adults. So I find myself reflecting in real time with you here now on like the ways that those relationships have grown and changed, because when they were that little, it was a lot about playing with them and being present with them, but also attempting and trying to create connections with the parents in the space. And now I've really formed really cool, special relationships with them as high school or college age kids that they are becoming. And um, that's really that's like I don't think I've paused to realize it's been 12 years, and like time has passed, and people are growing and those relationships grow too, and you are one of those as well, like a relationship that continues to grow and be a piece of that too. My first memory of you, I am going to hop in and tell you, is sort of a reflection of the same. Like it was very clear that you were there with the kids and for the kids, because I remember you with your guitar, of course, with a circle of kids all around you, bunched all around you, as you were like showing in real time how you wrap your gorilla. I think it's gorilla tape,
Yeah,
right? If
you're
I'm
right. Yeah.
remembering right. Okay,
Got
all
it.
right.
Yeah.
The gorilla tape around your arm, and all of the kids like literally like being in awe as you showed what that process was and the way that you've learned to adapt. And then, actually starting to play, like your concerts at Helping Hands are like the rock star concerts, all of the kids dancing and being in the middle of that, and just sort of very much the reflection of that too, like feeling like what I was witnessing and seeing and observing you do too was very much in that space of wanting to be for those kiddos too, which I very much love and respect.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say, and sweet that you remember that as well, because that's maybe it's something that I saw in you that I saw similar in, or strive to be similar in myself, is like to be there for those kids, to be there for their parents, and then to be hopefully more than a relationship that they have for 1 hour, but somebody that they can have as a reference and a friend for many years into the future. And I would love to, from that place, this is kind of what I was, you know, thinking about as I was thinking about talking to you today. It was just like be really cool to think about starting with that part of our conversation, but then backing up to like when you were born and when you were young. Like, what was your experience? Did your folks know that you were going to be born with one hand? And then, who were some of the early people in your life who spoke into your uh, do you call it in in your specific instance? Do you call it? Do you prefer disability difference? What do you prefer when people talk to and about?
I'm a big fan of leaning into disability and fully
Okay,
claiming that word. So yeah, I'm
well,
very
okay. So
happy to.
when you were born with your disability, what did people say around you and early on? Were there things that challenged you early on? Were there things that were there words or a longer form kind of teaching or mentorship that you had from a parent or someone in your life where they really helped you to grow and know who you were in those early days? And did you have anybody around you, any kind of uh, any person that you looked up to with a similar disability?
Yeah. So I am, how old am I? My birthday is actually next week, and I'm going to be 36, which
Ooh.
feels very old. um, but all of that to say that almost 36 years ago now, definitely we're talking pre-internet times. Um, so when I was born, it was a surprise. There wasn't, nowadays they're able to find the like autonomy differences at the 20-week scan. And so parents are able to sort of access community and start to dive in long before their child ever arrives earthside. Not my experience. It was an absolute surprise when I came out. And so the initial reaction was a lot of flurry around, we need to check internally. Is there anything else that we need to be concerned about? Is there anything else with the autonomy that also needs to be considered? Like is there any other extra medical that we need to like figure out and look at? And so, to my understanding, in talking with my parents, there was sort of the shock of there being just something that was so visibly different and trying to initially wrap your brain around that. And what does that mean? And, taking on the mourning of just mourning the idea of having a child who's going to live with two hands, like my world was going to look different. It just was. And then I think once they got back the rest of the like medical results that showed that there was no other hidden disabilities in there that they were going to have to consider, I also think there was a layer of relief that came with that too, that they knew, very visibly what it was that they were going to be encountering and addressing and moved from that space. I am the third of three kids. So also by the time I came around, my parents were just like, I don't know, keep up with your other siblings.
Mhm.
And we came from a very rural Iowa town. So, the closest big hospitals to us were an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours plus away from us. So initially, sort of with that sign off of, she's healthy otherwise, my parents sort of went back into their little rural bubble that was pretty resourceless and sort of stayed in that space of like, she'll figure it out.
Mhm.
And I think there's good aspects of that and there's bad aspects of that. I think the good aspect was I really grew up in a bubble where everybody knew me. So I wasn't constantly having to explain, re-explain, over-explain my body to people. I just was who I was in the community. Everybody knew who I was, and I could really move about in this safe bubble confidently because everybody just knew who I was. So I wasn't having to second guess myself or over explain my body or sort of figure out boundaries around talking about my body as I grew up. Um, but then I would say the flip side of that, maybe the bad side of that, is that my parents didn't have resources to further address the realities. So, what that ended up turning into for me, and I'd be interested, Tony, to deeply chat about your version of this too. What that turned into for me was the messaging sort of morphed into, well, Nikki, I guess, you learn to adapt, so you are no different. You are no different. You are no different. You are no different. And that was the messaging that I was receiving sort of on repeat from my parents closest to me. But while that's nice, it's really not true. The truth is, I am different. I am. And I was constantly, as I grew up and got older, encountering situations where I felt that difference very deeply, but nobody was there to sort of help teach me the language of experiencing those differences and experiencing the world in that way. Um, and so, really, once I went away to college was sort of when that kicked into high gear for me. That's when I really started meeting new people for the first time, having to talk about my body to strangers all the time, or I felt like I had to. I've now learned I don't have to. I started to learn the language around my body and how to talk about it, and I also started to come into the realization that, oh, I am different, and let's actually like pause and slow down and think about the ways where I am truly different and what that means for my reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of good mixed in with a lot of, I would say, hard too. Being a teenager in general just sucks for everybody, but definitely now looking back, I definitely see the way that it looking so visibly different affected my confidence around boys, around maturing, around socially engaging. Like I can see it very vividly, and have tried to do the homework on the back end to like sort of deconstruct it and think through it and feel all the things that I didn't have the language to feel during that time. So yeah, yeah, just some delayed stuff that I feel like I was doing in my 20s that probably most kids are able to sort of work through a little bit younger, because they don't have that added layer.
Yeah, sure. And did you like so as you well, first of all, like said you were curious about like my own experience in that as well. Like similar to you, I'm 40 years old, so even fewer resources, 4 years fewer resources for my parents
Yeah.
as they were as they were getting to know who I was when I was born. They didn't know that I was going to be born with one hand either. And from the moment that I was born, they had to rush me to the NICU. They didn't know in a similar way, what if there were other surgeries or other, internal things that might need to be addressed. And through that, my parents had, I think, just even from that maybe early traumatic experience, and like maybe a little bit of a fear surrounding what my life might be like. And in a little bit different circumstance, I was the first child, but one of the younger cousins in my family. So like I was the only kid in my entire family who had, hand like I have, and the only person in my town, the only person in my, schools growing up. So as I learned to grow, or as I grew, my folks, I think, just did their best to, I think, model language for me that was um, that could help me navigate different situations at a playground or in a grocery store, or especially like at a swimming pool. I think what was a little different is maybe just because of a little bit bigger, a slightly bigger town than you're describing in your life, but my parents were actually really intentional about, um, we will go to a different place today, and like almost not with the goal of practicing how to talk about having one hand to other people, but like that it did naturally put me in a situation where for early on in my life I was kind of always learning to navigate conversation, learning to navigate stares, maybe some negative comments, maybe some curiosities, maybe some like extreme curiosities where they want to like hold my hand and like stare at it or talk about it, and like what kind of like really trying to understand what people's intentions are when they're kind of coming at you with those things, from those early days. And um, you know, one thing that I was also curious about for your story was, what do you remember, some sort of beyond your family, maybe even some sort of early mentor or somebody that you looked to, somebody you saw on TV, somebody that maybe had a hand like yours, maybe not, but just somebody that like when you saw that gave you some sort of encouragement or hope as you were, learning about who you were going to be.
Yeah. I did not feel like I was encountering or seeing others like me ever at all. The only spaces and times that I was would be when we would make our visits to the Shriners Hospital.
Yeah.
And that was such a hospital, clinic,
Mhm.
sterile setting. It wasn't a warm enough setting for me to feel like I was able to like connect with other people or meet people in those situations. Now I know that, they do a lot of great work and there are extra events and extra things going on where they are connecting kids. We just were far enough away that unless it was an appointment, we weren't going to any sort of extra social things, right? So when I started to hit those teenage years and I really started to notice those nuances of difference that I didn't have the language for. Like, I think for me, that was the biggest thing is I just didn't have any words to describe what I was experiencing. I That happened in tandem with the Broadway musical Wicked coming out. And I know that we're on the 20 years later when the movie's coming out, but this was a very different time. The Broadway musical is very much its own bubble of a thing. And I globbed onto that musical unlike I had globbed onto anything else in my life because every word of every song sang by the Green Witch was words to what I was encountering in my everyday life, and were a version of words that I didn't understand how to say or express. And I didn't realize that at the time. I'm sure my parents did. I'm sure my parents understood that's what it was, but I was beyond obsessed. It was all that played up in my room that I was singing and dancing and doing things to. Every Christmas and every birthday, I just begged to go see it wherever it was touring close to us, which nowhere was close. But like truly it hit so deeply because it really was the only model that I felt like I saw that was giving me any kind of connection to what I was experiencing and trying to work through. Um, so my hope is that now, 15, 20 years later, the world has changed enough in a way where there are a lot more resources available to kiddos, a lot more tangible things than a Broadway musical and a Green Witch singing you songs. Not that that shouldn't and can be still incredibly powerful, as we know, art is life. But like I'd like to think that we've grown into a space where we've really been able to connect much more strategically with kids and in a much more real way so they have the literal people and resources in real time that they need to start to learn this language and to see the reflection of themselves in real time. But I really didn't feel like I had that. Do you feel
Yeah.
like you had that, Tony?
I would cite like that there was a person like Jim Abbott, out in the world, playing ball at a top level was inspiring to me. Um, and I also never met Jim. He was only on a team that, like I was, very much a homer in terms of my baseball allegiances. So like I was a Milwaukee Brewers fan through and through. I loved that Jim was out there playing and thought that was cool. But like I was a Brewers fan first, and so like all to say, like that is inspiring to me, knowing that story was there. My mom saw his picture in our hometown newspaper, the Waukesha, Wisconsin newspaper called the Waukesha Freeman, and she cut out his picture for me. And it was this tiny little article, after he threw his no hitter in 1993, which is what most of his documentaries and book and everything are kind of all built around. So knowing that was possible was really inspiring and exciting for me, and also. Um, I was always I was driven in music and driven in sports and things like that. So that also set a very high bar of what could be possible. I thought that was really neat to see out there. Um, and yet, that was pretty much the only thing I can think of. Similar to you, I think that the experiences I had in navigating or in meeting other families who had kids, born with hands and arms like I had, was pretty minimal. And if so, it was through the children's hospital at some point, or kind of like all different kinds of disabilities, all in one kind of unit, but not necessarily people who had hands like me. It would be, people who had cerebral palsy, or autism, or Down syndrome, or all kinds of different things, which is, also really informative. And I got to meet a lot of people and see that there are people go through and experience a lot of different things in their lives. So that was kind of its own experience, but not necessarily all hand related, if that makes sense. But I also think, it's good to understand, like, this is a big part of my own story as well. As the world has changed so much in terms of access that you just described, that something as small as, even as it doesn't relate to disability specifically, but um, if there was somebody playing guitar at a coffee shop in the town that I grew up at, and I could go see him or her play on a Saturday night, like, before I would let myself go to sleep that night, I would practice the chord that I had just seen on that guitar. And so, like, in a similar way, like, some access to, like, that Greenwich singing, something like uh, can spark something that can be I mean, like you described, it was this, not just a small, like, flicker of hope. It was like, there's like this whole world out there, for, maybe even that connection there is like two small town folks, both with a disability like this. And like, there's these little flickers that, just like, if you fuel them, like, can really lead to, like, a broader understanding, no matter where you are, and where this podcast will reach in the world too. Different countries are in different have different beliefs about capability within disability. Different counties and different states in our country, like, depending on resources available to you. You never know what note of music, what musical, what thing is just going to spark that in you. And I think it's really cool that, I would love to know, did you end up getting to see Wicked in person? And like, did it become like you've seen it 20 times, and or like have you, like, gotten a chance to be near it after all that early passion for it?
Oh boy, what an answer I have for you. But I do want to comment on two things that you said
Yeah.
first. First of all, I must tell you that here in Chicago, I just this week went to a Cubs game and they were indeed playing the Brewers, and you will be pleased as pudding to know they killed us. They absolutely killed us. So it was a
I won't
terrible
gloat.
game to
You're
be at.
That's
It
not
was
been the
awful.
case almost
We
ever in my
absolutely
life, but
buried them. Yeah, that's fair. Um, but then to your point, as you were sort of sharing about Jim Abbott and this sort of figure that is so um almost like a world away, like is a figure and is someone you're aware of and know of, but like not necessarily someone know. I did lie to you. There was a few versions of that. Like you described your mom literally like clipping out the newspaper article in my baby book. So this all it's wild actually. Um Back in 2000, so when I was about 10, there was a woman who actually competed at Miss Iowa, ironically what I would do many years later, who had one hand just like us. She was congenital as well, and she won Miss Iowa and went on to Miss America. And I have a vivid memory of being at a birthday party for a fellow classmate, and we all stopped to go downstairs and watch this contestant who looked like Nikki, who looks like you, do her talent on TV. And it's funny because in real time, it wasn't an overly big deal. Like it did have that like feeling of being special where it cemented in me, but I didn't give it too much more importance than that. But 1000%, when I was considering doing pageantry 13 years later, the reason that I knew that I could be in that space and I could do it was because I had that example of that person 10 years before who, in a way almost felt like a footnote, but wasn't. Like that was planting a seed. That was a seed
Mhm.
that was planted.
Yeah.
So there were a few layers of that happened. And then to your point, or to your question about like Wicked and music and what did that mean? What that meant for me in my world was that I saw the pathway of theater and music and art as being a path where I could find my people and the people who made me feel seen and accepted because that particular story made me feel seen and accepted. So I as I mentioned, yes, I asked for it for every birthday and Christmas. Anytime it was nearby, my parents were absolutely wonderful and they would absolutely take me to see it. So yes, I have seen it many, many times throughout the years growing up, which is awesome. But even deeper than that, it became then the pathway that I wanted to take. So I went into college and got my undergrad in directing and theater management. And another interesting layer there is that, secretly I wanted to be on stage, but I did not have any examples of people who looked like us being on stage. So I did not think that was an option for me. So I took a management route because I thought that was an acceptable space for me to be. Um, and ended up moving to New York out of college and was doing the like first steps of like doing theater management within the New York scene before then my life took its left turn and I went and I did Miss Iowa, a space where I knew I was allowed to be on stage because I had seen 13 years before on TV the woman who looked like me, right? Like that was an acceptable space for my body to be on stage. So I went home to do that and then that sort of changed my life trajectory even more from there. But I mean, it absolutely informed the next crucial decisions of my life because I felt so deeply connected. And it was the first space where I really felt like seen and understood through music and art and collaboration and just sort of all of those things that go into creating and making art.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
So, so two things there, because I would be curious to know, in a little bit of a different circumstance, when I was in college, my parents encouraged me because I ended up getting a scholarship to study voice and music. And my parents encouraged me at the time, like, please also consider and like coached me into also consider doing like music business as well. So hopefully someday when you are a singer or you are doing what you're dreaming of doing, that you also have some business acumen and aptitude when you actually enter the workforce. And I took that as like, I think that's actually like that's good advice for what I was trying to do, and I think it has served me well to this point, even though it was something that wasn't on my radar. And I'm just curious, like from what you just said, was there any piece of you that actually like looked forward to that stage management direction side like as well, or was it exclusively because of your what you described as your body and like having not seen that, or was there like, I think I could be good at this as well, and this might be a path that could work, and I could still be near the arts? And I'm just curious to kind of tease that out a little bit.
totally. I think so now I'm looking at it hindsight being 2020, right? I mean, my skill set is absolutely like I'm such a spreadsheet nerd. I'm such an organizer. Like I am that is what I like to do. That is something I do have talent and am good at is organizing people and things and thinking about details and sort of doing all of those things is really what I'm good at. So, I mean, here now, many years past this point that we're talking about, the role that I'm in at Amputee Coalition is literally their event support manager, which effectively is me doing stage management, but for their big events. Like it is directly applicable now, all these years later, in the sacred space for my community, but still sort of ties back into that original peace and love. So it piece of love of theater. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say there. But it's cool to sort of again, I feel like I'm so reflective with you today. Like it really to look back at sort of the time and the growth and the way that the pathway, the in real time, some things just don't feel like they make any sense at all. Or, of course, there's hardships and heartache and lessons that are being learned throughout it. But to sort of pause and reflect to see that is cool.
Yeah.
But to actually now answer the question that you asked, I don't think it was a conscious decision. I think if you would have asked me in real time as a college student, I think I would have just told you this is what I want to do. I want to do this. But I really do think that a huge piece of that subconsciously was because I didn't see the space for me. I didn't. And that sort of comes through for me in the sense that the second that I got a chance to be on stage, I was running to that opportunity to make myself available in the space to be on stage. So that's cool, but I also feel like there's a lot of layers within that piece too, where I feel like in that young age, I was fighting to understand my own experience. I was fighting to feel like I wanted to be seen. And being seen in a stage space feels like a very literal way to be seen, right? So I feel like I've sort of been able to unlearn that piece of the puzzle, that sort of just, I guess immature is the right word, that immature way of seeking to find and connect and have a route to feel seen. Um, I still like being on stage. I still love, presenting to people and having that space, but I no longer feel like it has to be my whole identity or my whole being or the only thing I have to offer the world. So I don't know, maybe I answered that in a way too convoluted way.
Oh,
Um, but I really do think it's a mixed bag answer there, and I do think a big piece of it is I didn't see anyone like me. I didn't. So why would I go into a space where there wasn't a space for me? Um, yeah.
did the Miss Iowa experience help to expose some of that in your life, where you like maybe you craved like the spotlight or the stage in some way, and then got to experience it, and then like kind of felt like I had that. Now I'm kind of looking for something different again later on after actually getting it. Is it what you hoped for or wanted? And you're shaking you're shaking your head. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah, so it was such a again, I've had many years now to sort of deconstruct it and think through it. And there was a lot of good that happened that year. There was a lot of really, really hard that happened that year too. Um, you're put on a literal national platform. Like when I won that title and went to Miss America, I literally was world news. And so it felt like a huge, overwhelming opportunity and something that I was not ready for it. Um so I sort of went into the Miss America experience like if we just pause and think about what that is at its most basic, that is a space where I am walking in and I am challenging traditional standards of beauty, right? Like beauty pageants truly there is a lot more to it than that, really. Like I know I'm saying that as a pageant girl, but if we are boiling it down to its most basic bones, like that is the role that I was playing. And I did not want that role. I wanted to show up in that space and I wanted to show up saying, I am no different. I'm proving it by being here. I am no different. So, looking back at it, there was so much push and pull internally with me trying to learn and understand that piece of the puzzle. Like I am showing up different. I don't want to be different. It's the same thing we're saying as when we were kids. I don't want to be different. I want to blend in. I want to be the same. I was still saying that within this space that was a national level space that was getting a lot of attention, that did give me the opportunity to do things like go into the spaces where you and I met. Like it really gave me so many cool opportunities, but I didn't feel like I was ready because I didn't feel like I had the resources to really teach me my language of my body, to learn sort of the lessons about who I am in this world and sort of the how the world reacts to our bodies and realistically, what does that mean? And how do you navigate microaggressions? And how do you talk about disability history? And how do you honor like all of these like disability studies conversations, which I know is very like heady of me to bring up, but like really I hadn't had the chance to have access to those things yet. And I do think that the more and more time goes by, those resources are inherently being infused into conversations, reading, and things that the younger generations are engaging in. So I'd like to think that they're going to be further advanced to you and I in our experience of that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. You totally, no, it's great. And it actually leads into like another idea is like as you've continued to grow and learn and from that experience and then from like where it sort of drove you into learning more about your own experience and being able to communicate it in a more thorough way and to examine and to read and to listen to podcasts and to find and to meet more people and to find like the way that you want to communicate it clearly. How like for a community like this that we're speaking to today, like what is some wisdom and advice that you have for like navigating that space like to people who haven't put all that time in, which is almost everybody. Like how do you continue to share that in a gracious, graceful, patient way while also hoping that people are coming along with you, but also like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, because
I
that's
do.
something that yeah, like, and I know that's one of
I've
the
not
tricky
always
things.
been
Well,
graceful at this.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm curious about like,
I
okay, well, maybe
definitely
that's
love
yeah.
to stand on a soapbox and yell my feelings out loud. I do. I definitely have a proclivity to that. Yeah, no, I think that's some of the beautiful pieces of our community is that we have the chance in adulthood to like really pause and deconstruct experiences that we've had, but in the same breath, like that's homework for us. That's extra energy that a lot of people who don't have the experiences we have, they don't have to do that. And it takes time and it takes energy and it takes resources and it takes connecting into people. And I think that what I feel like I've learned is that people will seek out the resources when they're ready to seek them out. And I really do firmly believe like we're in a space these days where there's really good resources that are easily accessible for people to connect in and learn. There have been wonderful like disability leadership organizations. So I like went through a disability leadership class here in Chicago many years ago where literally all we did as a cohort for I think it was technically 10 months was the program, but it was spread out. It wasn't like I was taking a full on college course. It very much was like a class we were taking together, if you will, where that really was having the sort of deeper conversations to help me in a group with other people sort of undo some of the things I had learned to sort of deep dive in and deconstruct, um, to tell me what books I could read, to tell me which people I should meet, like that really could be the roadmap, I guess is maybe what I'm trying to say. And I feel like, there's so many organizations like that doing really, really good work. And so I feel like now when I do have people coming to me that are like,
Mhm.
I know I'm ready for something. What is that something? That's usually the direction that I am trying to pass people is to just say, like, here are the spaces where you can, in a safe place, have access to information, have access to mentors that make sense, and also have access to a cohort that makes sense too. Um, so I definitely feel like for me in trying to think through things and do all of that homework that those spaces were really 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 fundamentally important to my growth and feeling like I could find the language and talk about it and grow from that space of just wanting to stand on stage and be like, look at me, I don't know why I want you to look at me, but look at me. um I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, totally, totally. I actually think, especially like coming from the arts world, that that's actually a lot of people's experience, maybe if they have a visible disability or not. It's a desire to be
Yeah,
seen in some way. And so I think that's a really insightful way of looking at that, and maybe examining for anybody why they crave that, and 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 thank goodness some folks do, and they make beautiful art for us, and they go on the stage and share that. And of course I've been a part of that myself professionally, and just as a student, and also enjoyed it from so many other people all my life. And I appreciate just the way that you so thoroughly like think through all that in your life, and the way that you're like just really deep diving on all those things. And I'm also curious about how that's led you to your current role, and how how you're using all those things that you've learned now in 2026, as an advocate in this community, and in your current position. Share about what you're doing now.
totally. And I'll pause before I dive in just to say, like, and I'm so thankful for then the people like you that I do see in the world who are creating the art, who are standing on stage, who are um, sharing those beautiful gifts in those spaces, so the kids can see that that is a pathway. Like, it's just so important. But yeah, now, so what am I doing today? So
Yeah.
I found my way now to work at an organization called Amputee Coalition. We are a national nonprofit that serves the limb loss, limb difference community. I think that a lot of people are aware of organizations that maybe a part of what they do is serving our community. You know, for example, the Wounded Warrior Project we know does sort of work with returning veterans who may happen to be a part of our community and are providing resources. But what makes Amputee Coalition separate and different is that our work is solely focused on our community and the needs of our community. So there is various sort of facets of what happened within. There's a lot of policy work, Hill work that's going on within Amputee Coalition. There's information and referrals going on. So a lot of my coworkers are what I call the front line, where when somebody is getting ready to maybe go through an amputation and they're looking for resources, they find our website, they pick up the phone desperate to talk to somebody, and they come in contact with our information and referral services. And they are the space that are able to really deeply connect people into the things that they need. We, of course, are creating resources as well, guidebooks into different things. And then the last piece of the puzzle is what I'm deeply invested in, which is the actual event spaces. So making sure that we're creating really high value spaces for people to come together in community. Um, and as we know, like, there's just nothing as sacred and special as having a space where you just get to be with other people, where you don't have to say anything at all about your experience, and you know that they get it, you know that they understand. And so I take that so seriously. Like, I really, really do. Like, I just feel like I have such a sacred job, because it really is the space where people get to come together and feel seen and feel heard and deeply connect to one another in that cool, deep way. And it's my job to do that by doing a lot of organizing, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of detailed thought work. Yeah, utilizing all of those sort of management skills that I learned in school so long ago. And we really host the two big projects that I specifically work on are our youth camp, which is hands down the best part of my job, because circling back to the top, I love those kiddos so much. So in fact, those are some of the relationships that now I am engaging with kiddos that I met 12 years ago at Helping Hands. They are now both campers and counselors who come to this camp that I get to help coordinate. And that's just been amazing to like have pictures of you with your 4 years old, and then to like now all these years later, like be forming relationships with you. Just very, very, very cool. So that's a piece of the puzzle. It's a traditional sort of 5-day run in the mud, play kickball, sit around the campfire type camp that we come together and have. It is different from other camps within our community because it is exclusively for the kids with limb loss and limb difference. So no siblings or no parents are on site. So it really is a really tight knit group of just the kiddos coming together and sharing in that space. And then the other piece of my role is that we run a big 700 plus person conference every year. And it is a 3-day event that has an exhibit hall, has 3 days of programming, has just so much content and stuff, activity happening around it. And so that's the other big piece of my puzzle. And we're excited that Tony's going to join us next year
Yeah.
for that.
I'm so excited. It's going to
Yeah.
be so neat. Thank you so much for thinking of me, and I'm
Oh,
just so
yeah.
grateful that we've kind of come back in touch through your recent work, and I'm very excited to get to see you hopefully in person, and get to reconnect through that. And I would love to know, like, and or have you share with the audience today, like, how can people find out about these events and learn more and connect with you further, in addition to the Amputee Coalition, so that if they themselves have a disability, hand difference, limb loss, or a lot of people who check in with the Berkeley resources are often educators who maybe have somebody in their classroom, or where can they direct people in their lives to know more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Amputee Coalition, I mean, if you pop that into Google, it will be the first return for you. And so there, checking out the website just to sort of look around and check out and see the vast resources there is certainly an awesome first stop. I am so always more than excited and happy to connect and chat with people and pass them to whatever resource they may be looking for directly. So the email for me is in Marti, my first initial and my last name. So in as in Nicole, and then Marti, Marti, at amputee-coalition.org. I'm so more than happy to, yeah, again, chat, connect, and help in that way. And we would love to have more people join us at all of these events and to be plugging into the resources that are here and are being built here within the organization because yeah, it's a special organization with a lot going on and lots of really cool programming, both virtually and in person. Like there's a lot of stuff that's virtual too, outside of the specific in-person things I named also. So just lots of ways to like get involved and jump in and get to know other people and join support groups and sort of just all of the so many options to connect for you. So would be happy to direct.
And they can connect with you through directly through your email. Do you like to direct people to your social media or anything like that? Or
You
yeah.
totally can. If you're wanting to, I'm hardly on social media these days, to be honest. However, I eventually would check direct messages, and I think it's Nicole G Marti is what my like. Instagram would be the one that I'm on primarily if I'm hopping on one. So also feel free to find me there, and eventually I will read the message.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your heart, your resources, your ideas, for being so open and honest about everything from growing up as a young girl in Iowa, and to navigating the world the way that you have, and with so much grace and curiosity. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I really enjoy being in the same space with you, and being the times that we've uh, been around a table, and just I also really, from the outset today, just want to say again, thank you for the advocacy work that you do in this community, and just want to encourage you to keep going, and to keep shining the light that you already do, and I know you will. But just your friend Tony is rooting for you, and I'm just grateful for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Tony. The same back to you. And I just am, yeah, so excited for these excuses to be connecting and reconnecting with you.
Totally.
It's awesome to, yeah, to continue on this journey alongside you for sure.
Well, it has been such a joy to host you. And I want to say also, just as we sign off today, a major thank you to the Berkeley Able Voices Pod. Having known about Berkeley my entire life as a musician and a guitar player, I've become familiar with resources through YouTube for many years and friends who had attended the school in person and always saw it as a beacon of education in the music world and a place that I've learned a lot from without having ever actually been a student there. And so I'm really grateful for resources just like this that exist for people who have interest in lots of different music and artistic disciplines. And so to have been invited to be the keynote speaker last year at the in-person conference last April at Berkeley, to now being a guest podcast host and getting to talk to amazing people like my friend Nicole here today, it is not enough to say that it's been an honor and a joy to share some of the people that I've had the opportunity to meet in my travels and experiences of sharing guitar and music and a message around the world. And I just want to encourage anybody listening today just to remember that you have a purpose. You have something unique and a special talent, a gift, an ability. And I hope that through resources like this and through the uh, just like natural curiosities that you have, just like Nicole talked about, from something as that she described, being like just hearing Wicked in a small town in Iowa, how that just like sparked something in her soul. Or for my story, hearing Kurt Cobain play guitar in the early '90s and being like, "What is that? Man, I want to do that too. How do you make that sound? What do you do?" And then just going out and doing those things. I believe that each of us have that thing inside of us, and I just want to sign off today, encouraging you in that thing wherever you are today to keep going and to know that just like I said to Nicole a minute ago, and I know she would say the same, that Nicole and your friend Tony are rooting for you where you are. Thank you, Berkeley. Thank you, Nicole. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Able Voices is a production of the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berkeley.edu/BIAAE or email us at BIAAE@berkeley, that's LEE.edu.